I often tell people that my greatest trials in life have ended up being my greatest blessings, and that's because they build character. It was September the 13th, 1996. It was a Friday. Mom and Dad had to let me get out of school early. It was a beautiful sunny day. I was going to pick up a girl for our first date. And then we were traveling back that night from Chattanooga to sing. So we had just started a group and I was going to sing for our first time. So as far as looking at things, it couldn't have been a better day. I had my cruise control set and we were traveling back from Alabama after I picked the girl up to Chattanooga back to Mom and Dad's house, when all of a sudden my tie rod snapped in the driver's side front tire. What that did was it caused the wheel to pivot in to the right, causing the back end of my truck to pivot left. Unfortunately for me, that was on a bridge, and I hit the bridge head on. I had time to say 2 words, and that was, "Oh God." I was calling out to my Creator to help me. When I hit the bridge head on, the back glass of my full-size truck broke. The girl that was with me was buckled up, but came out of her seatbelt and landed on the interstate, doing probably 60 miles an hour. I kind of slid the rail of the bridge, if you will, and then flipped over, and it was a 3-story drop. Past that point, I can't tell you a lot, except I do remember feeling a sheet go over my face and feeling these sonic waves hit me, and life force had been sent to get me. "John, can you hear us? John, speak to us, man." Strange, I remember those words verbatim. And I could hear him, but I couldn't respond. My body was shutting down and going into a coma. They ended up calling into Erlanger and said that they were bringing in a fatality. I had passed away. They shocked me back and brought me back to life, and they ended up putting me on a stretcher and rolling me into Erlanger Hospital. I remember someone asking me the question, "John, where are you hurting?" And I said, "My back, my head, and my legs."
Well, when I saw those x-rays come up on the view box over at the hospital, I pulled this up here to look at it. You would see the width of this spinal column? John's spine was broken and it was a complete width off to the side when I saw the x-rays. In other words, it didn't go like this, it went like this.
I had a concussion. I had a whiplash that turned my neck inside out. I had a punctured lung. The main artery to my heart had burst. I had a broken pelvis. My left leg was broken in 3 places, and both of my ankles were broken. They put me in critical intensive care unit the first night, and they didn't expect me to live. As a matter of fact, you know how they'll call your parents over? Well, they called Mr. and Miss Inman, and my mom and dad walked up, and they said, "We want to prepare you for a crisis. We don't believe John is going to make it through the night." I remember waking up in the critical intensive care unit at Erlanger and realized that I couldn't move my legs. They said I started thrashing around and took my neck brace off, and I did the one thing that every little boy does, and that's I called for my mom. Mom came in the room and she was crying, and that alerted me. No one, especially a man or a young boy, wants to see his mom crying. But she held my hand and she told me the news that the doctors had told them that I would never walk again. And medically speaking, he was 100% correct. There was nothing they could do. As a matter of fact, all the specialists said, there is nothing we can do scientifically. No one has ever recovered from this type of injury. Never, not ever. But in Mom's eyes, there was nothing impossible with God.
The nurses and the doctors all thought I was crazy. I was in denial. But I knew what the Lord could do. I had heard too many testimonies of how much the Lord could do, that He could heal. And so we kept praying and praying.
My pastor came to see me, and he said afterwards that he came to prepare me for the rough road ahead. He told me the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And I knew the story well, but it was neat to hear him tell it. And for some reason, I just turned and was looking at the wall as he was talking to me, but he told me the story of how the king had brought them before him and said, you have to bow and worship me. And they said, "O king, we're not careful to answer you. Our God is able and will deliver us, but let it be known that if he doesn't, we will not bow." And I was thinking about what that meant to me, and I remember turning to him with tears running down my cheeks. From the bottom of my heart, I said these words, "Brother Billy," which I called him brother, "God is going to heal me, but he knows that if he doesn't, I'll love him anyways." And I tell everyone that is the key. That's the secret to getting out of any trial you're in. When you get to the place that nothing else matters except serving God, it doesn't matter if I have cancer, it doesn't matter if my child dies, it doesn't matter whatever the worst case scenario you can think of, I will serve the Lord. Satan can do nothing with that. And that's the attitude that I had gotten to, that it just didn't matter. I believed with all my heart that he would heal me, but it didn't matter. And if he didn't, I would serve him today in a wheelchair. The first day at Siskin, we had therapy. And we went into the room back in the back, and Mary was her name. She was a sweet lady, and she was helping me with my legs and saying, "Okay, John, let's push against my hand." And so I would push, and I was sweating. And she grabbed the other leg and said, "Okay, John, push." And I pushed with everything I had. And when we were done, Mom tells me this later, obviously not at the time, but she said that she went back to Mary and asked her, "Did you feel anything, Mary?" Mary looked at Mom very sadly and said, "No, there's nothing there." Mom said that's the first and only time that she really got discouraged. She walked back up to her bedroom, or our room, and looked out the window. And there were little boys playing in this field at the CSAS, which is a school here in Chattanooga. And she said the devil told her, "Your son will never do that." And she was just broken and didn't know what to do or where to turn. So she turned to the Word, and she opened the Word of God and read where the men tore back the roof and lowered the paralytic, and Jesus healed the paralytic, and he was amazed at their faith. And that's all she needed to get through that hard moment. Now, I think it's very important to point out the fact that hundreds, if not thousands, of people were in prayer for me. As a matter of fact, people would come to the hospital to visit me, and they would always ask me the same question, "John, try and wiggle your toes." And man, I would try until my sweat would beat up on my face, and I just couldn't do it. One night, my brother-in-law was sitting at the foot of my bed, and he was looking at my feet, which I thought was a little strange. But he asked me the question, as always, "John, try and wiggle your toes." And I tried. And when I did, my right leg jumped, and everyone got excited. The problem was that it was a muscle spasm, and I told them that my legs, like I said earlier, were shrinking, and they were eating themselves from not moving in so long. Matter of fact, my upper leg was the size of my calf muscle. And something inspired him, had to be the Holy Spirit, to say, "Try it one more time." And we're talking about 8:30 at night. It's random. He's asking me. People have asked me multiple times, but he says, "Try it one more time." And so I did. I tried it one more time, and I moved my one big right toe. And I couldn't replicate that, but I did it. And everybody got excited except for me. And it wasn't that I wasn't thankful. It was the fact that I knew God was going to heal me. I just didn't know when. So I was happy, but man, everyone was so excited. Time went on, and I thought that I had moved my leg just a little bit, but I was afraid to tell anybody just in case it wasn't true. But it was true. I had moved my leg up just a bit. I remember it very clearly. It was October the 31st, 1996, Halloween Day. They had me standing, but I was holding on to the two silver bars. You may have seen those before, but I was holding on to those, and they had a strap in front of my knees, one behind my hips, and one around me so that I wouldn't buckle out and fall to the ground. And Mary, the same one that was there in the beginning that said there was nothing there, asked me the question, "John, would you like to try and take a few steps?" Now, I had no idea if I could even move my leg. And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I would." And I walked there and back 5 times, and God had healed me. Every day, Dad would go to work, and he would be asked, "Is John walking yet?" And he would say, "Not yet, but he's going to." And this particular day, they called him and said, "Come over, we need to show you something." And Dad walked in, and I'll never forget seeing him as I was walking there. And it was the ugliest walk you've ever seen, but I was walking. And I still remember my dad raising his hands to heaven and praising God that he had healed his son.
And here he come. He started walking, and the doctors was amazed. They sat there and just shook their head. They couldn't, in unbelief. They've never seen nothing like that come to pass so quickly to a young man that would have been supposedly crippled for the rest of his life.
If you remember earlier, I told you about the one time that my mom got discouraged, and that was when she looked across that field at the school and saw those little boys playing, and that the devil told her, "Your son will never do that." Well, we got the chance to prove him wrong once again. I want you to realize that I'm not the main character of this story, that Christ is the main character of this story. And no matter what you're going through, there's still hope. Does God heal everyone? No. Do we all have to die? Yes. But God still heals, and I was healed.